The camera lens blur effect is found under the blur and sharpen category, and it has a lot of features and properties, and it can be used for lots of different things. To show you what it can do, let's start with just this photograph of a road going off into the horizon. There's not much depth of field in this photo. Everything in the background is in focus, everything in the foreground is in focus, so I want to add in some artificial lens blur using the camera lens blur effect. So I'm going to do this with an adjustment layer, go up to layer, new adjustment layer, and I'll rename this DOF for depth of field, and add camera lens blur to that adjustment layer. And immediately my image gets blurry. And that's because of the blur radius right here. If I turn this up, it's going to blur everything out. And I want to point out right here in the middle of my image where these dashed lines are, you can see that it's blurring it out in a very photorealistic way. We're getting this nice bokeh shape for the out of focus portions of my image. And we have a whole lot of properties for that bokeh or iris shape. In the real world, this comes from the actual shape of the iris of the lens, so that's why it's called iris properties. First of all, we have the shape, and it's defaulted to hexagon, and you can kind of see that here. There's 6 sides to this blurry shape. But I could change this to any one of these options which adds or removes a side. So I could go all the way down to triangle, and it's very clear what just happened, or I could go all the way up to decagon, and it's going to add a lot more sides. Now, the more sides you have, the longer it takes to render, but the more realistic it looks. However, we have a roundness slider, and if I turn this all the way up, it's going to turn it into basically perfect circles. This would happen if you had your iris all the way open on a circular lens. And it doesn't really make a difference which one of these options you have checked if you're going to turn the roundness all the way up to 100. So I'm going to drop it down to triangle, and you'll see that nothing really happened. I can dial this back, and you can see how that takes that roundness off and turns back into a triangle. But now it's going to render a little bit more quickly, even though I only have 3 sides to my iris. Next up is the aspect ratio, and I could turn this down to get more of an anamorphic look. Or if I just want to stylize this, I could make it really wide. We can also control the rotation of that iris, as well as this diffraction fringe property. If I turn this up really high and zoom in close, you can see that it's basically just making the center of that iris more transparent. This is back at its default, but if I increase it again, you can see it kind of makes a ring around the outside. Or if I turn it down to 0, then we're gonna have no diffraction at all. I kind of like that look, so I'm gonna crank that up to 500. And I'm gonna turn the rotation back down in the aspect ratio. Why not make it a little cinematic? I'll say 0.6, so we've got these ovals. And I'll go ahead and close up iris properties, and we'll move on to blur map. And this is part of what makes camera lens blur so powerful. Right now, it's just applying a uniform blur of 14 pixels across the entire image, but we can use a blur map to tell the effect what parts of the image should be blurred more than others. And this is something you can't do with the standard blur like fast box blur, and I'll even just show you why not. So let's duplicate this adjustment layer and turn the first one off. I'll get rid of camera lens blur and add a fast box blur to this and just blur it out. So first of all, I'll zoom in. You'll see that this is not at all generating realistic depth of field blur. We don't have that nice iris shape or any controls for that, which is fine. Fast box blur is not meant to do that, so I'm not saying that it's a useless effect, but let's say that I wanted this portion of the image to be in focus, basically having no blur, and then the blur increasing as it goes off into the distance and towards the foreground. Well, if I grab my rectangle mask tool and just draw a mask on my adjustment layer, set it to subtract, so this is the section of the image that's in focus, and actually, let me make that a little bit tighter, and then press F to bring up the mask feather, unlink the X and Y, and just feather out the Y. I'll zoom in nice and close here. You can see that this is not creating a natural change in blurriness from the affected area to the unaffected area. It's basically just dialing back the transparency of that blurred version as the mask transitions. That's not at all how the blur should look. But I'm just gonna turn that one off for a second and then go back to our camera lens blur version. Now, if I make something similar to this mask, I can tell camera lens blur to use it to blur different parts of the image differently. So I'm gonna make a new solid layer, and I'll call this blur map. Click OK. And then add a ramp to it, just a gradient ramp, and then a colorama effect. Now, obviously, I don't want a rainbow, I want a grayscale image, but instead of going from just black to white, I want it to go from white to black to white again. And I can do that using colorama on top of that gradient ramp. So the input is already looking at this layer, but my output is where I'm getting all of these crazy colors. I want to switch this to the preset of ramp gray. Then I'll click on the right side of this triangle to grab the black sample and move it to somewhere around here, and then control click and drag that triangle over to make a second copy of it. Now I have this black bar, which is going to represent the part of the image that I want to remain in focus. And as it transitions into white, it will get more and more blurry. So I can actually turn this layer off, go to the depth of field adjustment layer, and under the blur map layer control, I'm gonna select the blur map solid and make sure to choose effects and masks. Now it's very subtle, but if I zoom in here, you can see that the bottom part of my image is now blurred, and it transitions into less and less blurred areas until we get to this point right here where it's in focus. If I turn my blur map on, sure enough, that's where it's black. So let me just turn the opacity of this down a little bit so you can see the overlay. We have blurriness where it's brighter, and it's in focus where it's darker. Now I want this line to be a little bit further down here, so I'm gonna adjust my colorama a little bit to pull that into a tighter section of in focus area. And this is kind of an imprecise way of setting this focus point. So what I'm gonna try and do is just bring these two in so they're kind of centered around this middle point. In fact, I'm gonna click and drag on this one and hold Shift to snap it right to that midpoint so I know right where that center point is, and then Control click and drag to the right to make these a little bit more symmetrical. So my blur map looks like this, but now that I have this set up with Colorama, I can collapse this output cycle and go into the input phase and use this phase shift. If I increase it, it's going to just shift that gradient around. So I can very precisely now choose where I want this black line or the in focus area to be. So let me turn this off again and then adjust the phase. Again, I'll zoom in nice and close so you can see what's happening. If I bring this back, it's going to shift that plane of focus, or I could increase the phase and get it to go further into the background. So again, I want this portion right here to be in focus, so I'm gonna bring this back until it is in focus. And to make this even more noticeable, I'm gonna go into my depth of field again and turn the blur radius up even farther. I'm gonna really crank it up so it's easy to see. Now I have this one plane that's in focus and everything else is out of focus. And it's as simple as adjusting this phase shift to change where that focus point is. And this is where I could animate it. So if I went to the first frame, clicked on that stopwatch, moved forward about 1.5 seconds, and then shifted this backwards, then I'll just bring up those keyframes with the U key, ease them with F9, and play it back. Now I have this nice, smooth, faux depth of field, and it looks really great. Now it's defaulted to using the luminance as the channel for blurring, and that's what I want, but you could also change it to red, green, blue, or alpha to pull that blur information from. I've never needed to use anything but luminance though. For placement, we have center map, or if your layer, your blur map layer is a different size, you could change that to stretch map to fit, and then it will scale it down to be the size of your comp. But I would strongly encourage you to work at the same resolution as the layer that you're applying it to so that they line up just like this gradient. Next up is this blur focal distance slider, and this isn't going to really work with the blur map that I'm using. We'll come back to that in a little bit. But next up is invert blur map. So this is literally just going to swap which parts are blurry and which parts are in focus. So black on my blur map is now blurry and white is in focus. I'll uncheck that and we'll close up the blur map section. Next is this highlight section. And this also is not going to be all that noticeable in this particular image. But if I turn up the gain and then go to the next property, which is threshold, and turn that down, then the brighter parts of the image are going to start to kind of bloom out and overexpose. So if I really dial this back, then we're going to get this highlighting over these out of focus areas, and I can bring the saturation back in. See how that brought that yellow color back in from those road lines, or leave it at 0 and have it kind of just blow out to pure white. But this will make more sense in a second on a different example. So let me reset these back to where they were. And then finally we have repeat edge pixels, which is on by default, just like it should be, because if I uncheck that, then we're going to get these semi-transparent pixels around the outside of my comp. And then finally, we have use linear working space. And this has to do with the color space that you're working in After Effects. Now, I've set my project working space up to be working at 32 bits per channel in sRGB and linearizing the workspace. A lot of this is very advanced, but generally you want to work in sRGB. I changed this to 32 bits per channel because my next example is a 3D render that was created at 32 bits per channel. But really quickly, I'm just going to show you what happens if I say make a polygon. Doesn't have to be too big. And because I'm working in 32 bits per channel, I can have color values higher than pure white. Basically meaning that I can give something actual luminance within After Effects and it will bloom out the way that you would expect it to. So I'm going to move this shape below that blur map so that it has blurring showing up on it. And then I'm going to go to the fill color. And this is what I mean by brighter than pure white. Currently my red, green, and blue values are all set to 1, meaning it's pure white. But if I were to grab, say, the red channel, I can increase this past a value of 1, and in the out of focus areas, in these blurry areas, it's going to fringe out towards that reddish color. I could also bring in some blue if I wanted to make it a little bit more purple, or I could add in some green to make it more yellow. So I could really blow this out and produce something that looks very warm and bright. And the more blurry it becomes, the more apparent that fringing is. And it would show up even better if I actually just turn off that blur map so that it blurs out everything, and then I'll add an exposure effect to dim that background image. Now if I just turn off my blur temporarily and I'll center that up and maybe make it a little bit smaller, duplicate it, make this one a little bigger, and just make a bunch of copies, then we'll turn that blur back on and see how we can create a very convincing looking effect with these bright spots, almost like these are little lights in my scene. And depending on the size of the shape, you can see more or less detail. This would not happen if I wasn't in 32 bits per channel. If I change this down to 8 bits per channel, everything is gonna get very flat. We still have the same shape, but all of that brightness information is gone, and you can see how much banding is happening in the background. Let me undo that. Now, I already showed you that I set my project to work in linear, to linearize that working space, but if I uncheck that, it does make a pretty big difference with my colors, but if I uncheck use linear working space now, that's going to have an effect on the overall image. So if you're not working in linear already like I am, then you can use that checkbox to create a linear working space for that effect specifically. All right, now that we've looked at all of these controls, I'm gonna jump over to a different composition, which is a 3D render that I made in Cinema 4D. This is a 32-bit image, meaning there is color information in here that is beyond pure white. So all these little dots are actually very bright, and I can show you that by going to the info panel. And when I move my mouse over top one of these dots, you can see that the RGB values are all above 1, well above 1. In fact, the red channel is at 13, green is at 8, and blue is at 5. That is an extremely bright set of pixels. If I turn my exposure down, eventually I'll get to a point where I start to see some color information where this is kind of an orangey yellow color, but setting this back down to an exposure of 0, it's all blown out to pure white. But because that color information is there, we can take advantage of it with the camera lens blur. So I have this comp set up already with an adjustment layer for the depth of field, my still frame render, as well as another layer that is a depth pass. Now this is a blur map, just like we created in the other comp, except it was rendered out automatically from Cinema 4D with this render. What it's giving us is a map for how to blur out this image if we want to add camera lens blur. So that will be our blur map. I'll go to my depth of field adjustment layer, add a camera lens blur effect, and under the blur map, choose the depth layer, making sure to choose effects and masks, and then zoom in here a little bit and turn up my blur radius a bit. So you can see this is blurring out the background, and this first mannequin right here in the front, that is the one that is in focus. Now, if I zoom in nice and close, and now take a look at this blur focal distance slider, if I increase this, it's going to shift the focus throughout my scene. So I can target this background layer or this background character just by moving that blur focal distance back. Now, the reason this works in this instance and not in our faux depth of field instance is because my blur map is actually accurate to my scene. The object closest to the camera is closest to pure black, and as things move towards the background, they become brighter and brighter. Whereas in our faux depth of field, this blur map was just a gradient that goes from white to black to white again. And I did it this way because of a stylistic choice. I wanted the center of my layer to be in focus and everything around it to be blurred. But if I were to have, say, taken off that colorama so that my gradient just goes from white to black, and actually I'd want to swap those colors, then it's going to produce something a little bit more realistic. I could move this point maybe to right about here so that everything from this point forward is in focus. And then I could go to my depth of field and shift that blur focal distance backwards a little bit. And that creates a little bit more of a realistic effect. And the same thing is happening over here in this comp. I can move the targeting of that focus basically using the blur focal distance. So I'll put it right here on the center character and maybe turn up the blur radius a little bit more. You'll notice that if you push this too far, you're gonna start to get some weird fringing happening. So it's definitely something you wanna be a little bit more subtle with. So I'm gonna turn that back a bit. But you'll notice that all these little dots that are scattered throughout my scene are blurring out with that iris shape, and it looks really nice. Now I'm gonna go into my iris, and again, change this down to say triangle and turn the roundness all the way up. Turn down the aspect ratio so we get these nice anamorphic looking bokeh iris shapes. Crank up that diffraction fringe, maybe blur it out just a little bit more. And to try and sell this look a little bit more, I'll just turn on this layer, which is giving me an anamorphic crop over top of everything. And now we have this nice out of focus view that adds a whole lot more depth than with it turned off. Now this last section of highlight with the gain and threshold, this is gonna work a lot better on this image. So I'm gonna turn that gain up, and you can see that all those dots are getting much brighter. So I'll just turn it all the way up. I also want to bring that saturation up so that we get the color influence from the original light color. Again, with it all the way down, we're gonna get just white, but with it all the way to 100%, we're gonna get some more of that yellowish color coming in. And I can also adjust the threshold so that more or less of the scene is getting that highlight. So if I turn the threshold way down, it's gonna bloom out a lot of my image, but if I dial this in, then it'll just be the brightest parts. So that's without and with. It's a very cool effect. But with that, we've covered all of the features of camera lens blur. It's probably the most powerful blur built into After Effects, and it's absolutely worth knowing. But that's camera lens blur in a nutshell. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this tutorial, then check out the other ones here on my YouTube channel. And if you like my teaching style, then definitely check out my longer form content on Skillshare and School of Motion. And if you want to support more tutorials like this one, check out my Patreon. You can find links for all of that stuff in the description of this video.